Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. There are moments in life that don't just linger, they sink deep inside you, like roots pushing through the soil, changing the way you breathe, the way you sleep, the way you view everything around you. And sometimes they don't even announce their arrival. They just quietly take hold. You don't realize it at first, but eventually you notice. They alter the way you look at the people you once trusted with your whole heart. I used to think grief was the deepest pain a person could ever feel. I thought it was the kind of pain that comes when you lose someone, that raw, unspoken ache that leaves you shattered. It was the night my mother died when the world split open for me. The house grew silent, and so did I, but the silence didn't stay gentle for long. Grief can do that, you know? It can reveal things that hurt even. More than what it takes. It doesn't just change how you feel. It changes who you are, who you thought you could trust. And sometimes, what it reveals is far worse than the loss itself. I remember that night as clearly as if it happened yesterday. The rain wasn't heavy, just a light drizzle that seemed to tap on the window as if reminding me that it was still. They're still watching. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, holding one of my mother's sweaters. It still smelled like her lavender and coffee, like home, the kind of scent you never forget. And then my father walked in. What he said that night, what he asked of me, that wasn't just grief. It wasn't even comfort. No, it was betrayal. But not the kind you see coming, not the kind that makes you shout or slam doors. This betrayal came in whispers. It slipped in, quiet as a shadow, subtle as a lingering hug that overstays its welcome. It wasn't loud or aggressive. It was soft, calm, but deep down I felt it like a punch to the gut, and that was the moment I learned something no one ever warns you about. Sometimes the one you mourn isn't the one who's gone. It's the one who's still standing there. The one you thought you could trust forever. My name is Leah, and this is the story I've never told, not to my best friend, not to my brother, not even to the therapist I tried once. It's been living inside me for years now, like fire burning beneath my chest. But today, I'm finally going to speak it out loud. Maybe, just maybe, if I say it enough, someone else out there, someone like you, will feel a less alone in their own silence. Before we begin, I want you to understand this. The stories I share on Affair Revealed aren't just stories. They're truths. They're truths buried so deep that they can only be whispered in the dark. If you're someone who believes in the weight of raw honesty and the messy beauty of love, and in the ache that lives beneath loss, stay with me. Subscribe to Affair Revealed, because what I'm about to share will change the way you understand grief, family, and love forever. Mom died in the middle of the night. They said it was peaceful, her breathing slowed, and then it stopped. I was the one who found her. She was wrapped in her favorite knit blanket, the TV still on. It was one of those old nature shows, the birds, the oceans, the trees. Always said the sounds made her feel like the world was still beautiful, even when life wasn't. But when I stepped into the living room that morning, all I heard was static. The silence felt heavier than the world itself, like something had settled in the air, something thick and cold. The days that followed blurred together, not in the way you'd expect a dramatic, tear-filled grief. No, this was worse. This was numbness. The funeral was quiet, just a few friends, a few relatives. Jaden didn't say a word. He kept his hood up, stared at the floor, his fists clenched in his pockets. It was like he was trying not to fall apart. And Dad? He was like a statue, still, distant, barely a flicker of emotion. He didn't cry. He barely spoke, just nodded. And shook hands like he was in a movie he didn't want to be a part of. Honestly, he'd felt gone for years. Growing up, I barely knew him. He'd come home late, eat quietly, and pass out in his chair with the remote still in his hand. He wasn't cruel, but he wasn't warm either, just distant. Mom used to say, "He's tired. He works hard for us." Maybe he did, but it always felt like he was working to stay away from something or someone. Still, Mom loved him. Even when he forgot their anniversary 2 years straight. Even when she cried alone in the bathroom after another attempt to. Reaching fell flat. I watched it all, quietly. I was taught to stay small. Don't disturb Jaden, though. He was like, Mom. He felt everything, tried to fix what was broken. But after she died, he shut down. He quit guitar, quit going out, and locked himself away with his music, the walls shaking with every note. I couldn't ask if he was okay, because I wasn't, and I couldn't carry both of us. The house became a museum, not frozen in beauty, but frozen in the things left unsaid. Her shoes stayed by the door. Her mug was still in the sink. I couldn't bring myself to wash it. I started wearing her sweaters, sitting on the porch with her old journal, flipping through the pages I couldn't bear to read. Her words burned, but it was the closest I could feel to her. Dad noticed. At first, I thought he was just grieving like the rest of us, but then his gaze started to linger. Not fatherly, not safe. I didn't have a name for it, not yet. He would stand in the doorway, watching me, not absent, just there. One night, I came down for water at 2 a.m. The kitchen was dark, but he was sitting there, his silhouette caught in the moonlight. I keep expecting her to walk in, he said. I told him I felt the same way, but my words didn't sound like they had before. That night, something shifted. The air was thick with unspoken things. It felt wrong, but I couldn't figure out why. I stayed, though. I stayed because I still believed in family, that we could carry each other through the dark. But I was wrong. So wrong. What came next? I never saw it coming. It was a Sunday afternoon, quiet but heavy. The sky hung low, unsure whether to cry or just ache with us. I finally gathered the strength to start clearing Mom's things, not because I was ready, but because the silence was choking me. Her room felt like a ghost was living inside it. I put on her old sweatshirt, opened the windows, and stepped into her closet. Touching her things felt like erasing her, but it was all I could do. Her scarf still smelled like her hair. Her reading. Glasses were smudged as though she'd just set them down. A half-finished bottle of perfume sat on the nightstand. I sprayed it once, and the scent hit me so hard in the chest, I had to sit down. That's when I heard the footsteps behind me. Slow, hesitant. I didn't need to turn around, I knew it was him. Dad stood in the doorway, holding a plain cardboard box. There was nothing special about it, except the way he held it to his chest like it was sacred. I found this in the attic, he said, his voice softer than usual, almost gentle. He didn't look tired, just different. I nodded, expecting him to hand it to me. But instead, he walked over and placed it gently on the bed, then sat beside it too close. I opened the box slowly. Inside were photos I'd never seen before. Mom and Dad in their 20s, her laughing, him really smiling. There were letters, to one with a lipstick kiss stamped on the envelope. My eyes stung. I used to write her from deployment, he murmured. She kept them all, even the dumb ones. Said they made her feel close to me. Then his hand reached over, casual like it was nothing, and rested on mine. But it wasn't casual. It stayed there too long, pressing warm. I gently pulled my hand away, pretending to focus on the pictures, but inside, something started to twist in my stomach. Then he said it not with grief in his voice, but something else. Something that made my skin crawl. It's just you and me now, Leah. We have to take care of each other. I swallowed hard, tried to smile, tried to make it mean what I hoped it meant. But the alternative, I wasn't ready to face it not. Yet, I left the room. My heart was pounding in my chest. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I couldn't focus. The TV was on, but I wasn't watching it. Jaden stayed in his room, headphones on, the bass thumping through the walls like a heartbeat. Dinner came and went, but Dad didn't say much. His eyes, though his eyes never left me. Later that night, long after the lights were off and I was trying to sleep, I heard it. 3 soft knocks, gentle taps on my door. I froze. Maybe it was Jaden, maybe he couldn't sleep either. But then the door creaked open. Tall, broad still, it was him. "Leah," he whispered. "You awake?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My heart was beating so loud I was sure he could hear it. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him, quiet, careful. Then he said something that made my stomach twist, like something inside me had broken in two. "Sometimes I look at you and see her. Same eyes, same way you hold your head when you're sad." He stepped closer. "I don't want to feel alone anymore." I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. My body went rigid. My mind and heart disconnected. When he left, it felt like the air had shifted. The silence was louder than it had been before. I was frozen, trapped in a place I didn't understand. The next morning, I avoided him. I said I needed air. I took a walk, but the truth was I was afraid. Afraid to see him, afraid to see myself. I hated him for it. But more than that, I hated myself for freezing, for staying, for not saying no. I kept thinking about the night Mim died. How he held me in the kitchen, his arms around my shoulders, my tears soaking his shirt. Back then, I thought he was just grieving. Maybe something inside him had cracked open. But now I wonder if that was the beginning. If he'd been trying to fill a hole I was never meant to fill, and even after all of it, even after what he said, I still tried to make excuses. He's grieving, he doesn't know what he's doing. We're all broken right now. Those thoughts kept swirling in my mind. Like static I couldn't tune out. I didn't tell Jaden, didn't tell anyone what I even say that my father said. Something strange that maybe he was crossing a line. I didn't want to believe was real, and what if I was wrong? What if I was misread injury thing? I started avoiding him, only came downstairs. When I knew he wasn't around, I started blocking my door. Without thinking, it became instinct, but nothing felt safe anymore, not the house, not his eyes, not Evan myself, because I didn't trust my own judgment. Was it love or manipulation? Was he trying to connect or replace what he lost? I couldn't tell. And that uncertainty was the worst part, because when love and grief and loneliness start to blur, it gets harder to see where one ends and the next begins. I started having dreams, twisted versions of life, and then Mom was still alive, but I could never reach her. She'd stand at the end of the hallway, silent, disappointed, and I'd wake up soaked in sweat, choking on guilt for something I hadn't even done yet. That's the part no one talks about, the before, the almost, the confusion that comes when a line hasn't been crossed, but you can feel the ground cracking beneath you. Every step feels like you might fall right through. And it didn't stop after that night. Things didn't explode, but they didn't go back to normal either. They just shifted quietly. Dangerously, he started appearing more little gestures, at first making tea in the evening, knocking, handing me a cup, then sitting across from me like we were old friends, two people sipping comfort in a house that had forgotten how to be warm. He'd ask if I was sleeping okay, if I needed anything. He'd tell me he was proud of me for holding it together at first. I told myself it was healing, that maybe. We were finding our way back to something steady, something safe, but it wasn't that. It wasn't that at all, because slowly the way he spoke began to change. So did his touch. It wasn't fatherly anymore, a hand on my shoulder that lingered too. Long fingers brushing the small of my back as I passed him in the hallway, a hug that clung to me like it didn't want to let go. I'd stiffen, but I didn't sigh anything, didn't pull away. I just froze, and every time, every small violation that didn't quite cross the line, I'd retreat into my head, desperate to rewrite it. He's just lonely, he does know what he's doing, he's grieving, but the truth, I think he did know. I think he always knew. There was a look in his eyes, a softness that didn't belong. There a hunger that had no place being directed at me. The late night visits became a pattern. He'd knock on my door around midnight, always gently, always like a question, "You still awake?" Then he'd sit on the edge of my bed. He'd talk about Mom, how she used to sit in that same spot, how she'd cry when no one was watching, how he wished he'd loved her better. And I'd just sit there wrapped in her old sweater, nodding silently, swallowing the lump in my throat, because part of me felt sorry for him. He looked so broken, but the lines, they were blurring one night. He brought in a photo their wedding day. Mom looked radiant, young, glowing, completely in love. He sat beside me, held the picture close to my face, and whispered, "You look just like her." Then he started to cry real tears quit steady. I didn't know what to do, whether I was supposed to comfort him or scream or run, but instead, I reached out, put a hand on his shoulder, and he leaned into me, pressed his forehead to my neck, stayed there. Breathing me and holding me like I was something sacred and familiar and lost, and again, I didn't move. I kept telling myself, he's grieving. But every time I used that excuse, every time I let it silence me, I lost another piece of myself, a piece. I'm still trying to find. I stopped going out, stopped calling friends. I didn't want to lie, but I didn't want to tell the truth either, because what was the truth? That I was being emotionally consumed by the man who raised me, that I couldn't breathe in my own home, but I didn't know how to leave. Jaden didn't say much then, but he watched me. I could feel it, like he knew something was wrong. And I think maybe that's why I stayed, because I didn't want to leave him behind. I thought I could protect him from Dad, from myself, but I couldn't even protect me. Then came the night everything shattered. It was late, almost 2 o'clock. I was curled up in the living room under Mom's blanket, trying to lose myself in an old book, something safe, something. I knew I didn't hear him come down the stairs suddenly. He was beside me. He was beside to move, not that. Night hestered at the fireplace for a long time. Then he said calmly, I miss her. I miss being seen, touched, needed. I didn't reply. My fingers tightened around the blanket fin. He looked at me, and I felt it before he even spoke. You don't have to be alone, Leah, he said, not anymore. And just like that, the pretense was gone. No more hiding behind grief, no. More silence or calculated phrasing. He said what he wanted, and I didn't run. I didn't scream. I froze just like always. And in that moment of stillness, silent and suffocating, something. Incidine cracked, not loud, not obvious, just a small, quiet fracture. Like porcelain under pressure, and when he reached for me, fingers brushing my cheek, it wasted under soft wrong. I flinched, but he didn't stop. His tongue wiped away a tear. I hadn't noticed. You don't have to cry, he whispered. You're not doing anything wrong. This could be love too. That was it. That was when something snapped, not in him and me. I stood up so fast the blanket fell. My chair screeched against the wood. I backed away. Don't. I said then louder, don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. His expression changed just for a second, from soft sorrow to something colder, sharper, like I'd broken whatever spell he was under. I saw it, the flicker of awareness, and suddenly everything felt real terrifying. I ran down the hallway past Jaden's closed door. I don't remember opening the front door, just the cold hitting me like a slap, bare feet on the porch, winter air cutting into my skin and me breathing like I'd escaped a burning house, but I hadn't gone anywhere. I was still there, still his daughter, still trapped in that housebound. By blood and silence, I wrapped my arms around myself, not for warmth, but to keep from falling apart. And even then, even after all of it, there was still that whisper in the back of my head. Maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe he's just broken. Maybe I'm overreacting. But no, I wasn't. I stayed outside until my feet were numb, until the shaking stopped, until I could breathe again. Then I went back in quiet, careful. The house was dark, silent, just the hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, like nothing had happened. I went to my room, locked the door, sat on the floor with my back against it, like that could keep him out, and I agreed, but that wasn't the end. The worst part came after that night. I didn't speak to him, didn't let him see me. I avoided the house. As much as I could left early, wandered aimlessly, the park, the library, the bus stop at the edge of town, didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't talk. I was there, but he wasn't. When I came home, it was always late after I knew he was asleep, after the lights were out, after the fridge hum felt too loud. I'd tiptoe in like a ghost, never came to my door again. But what scared me more than anything, he acted like nothing had happened, still made tea, still cooked dinner, still left the porch light on. My key was doing me a favor, and the silence, it wasn't awkward, it was deliberate, like we'd made an unspoken pact to bury it deep. But I hadn't agreed to anything. I was just surviving, and Jaden changed too. He wouldn't look at me, not really, if I walked into. There me believe whenever I sat at the table, he'd grab his plate and take out upstairs. At first I thought it was just grief, each of us unraveling in our own way, but then one night, he passed me in the hallway and flinched. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. But I felt it, and suddenly, I wondered, did Heno, had he heard something that night, or worse, had he seen? The guilt crushed me. I was no longer just a daughter surviving through a cage of my father's broken love. I was a sister trying to protect someone who maybe didn't need me anymore, or worse, didn't want me anymore. When we did sit together at dinner, the silence wasn't just uncomfortable, it was deafening. He'd ask how school was. Jaden would grunt, I'd say fine, and we'd all stare down at our plates. Like they might offer us an escape one night. He reached out across the table just for a moment, not even touching me, just reaching. I flinched hard. Jaden noticed. He shoved his chair back so fast it screeched against the tile. He grabbed his dish, left it in sink without rinsing it, and disappeared. It felt like a silent goodbye. Then the panic attacks started. That's probably what they wear. My chest would lock up, vision blur. Hands trembling on the bathroom floor while I begged myself to breathe, to believe the walls weren't closing in, but they were not outside. Inside me, folding and caving, the dreams are worse, not always nightmares. Sometimes they started out until Mom. In the kitchen, smiling, humming an old song, but no matter how hard I tried, I could never speak, my lips moved, but nothing came. Out she'd just stare at me, her smile would fade, and her eyes, they'd hurt like Shek knew, like she saw what I was becoming. Someone she wouldn't recognize, will be proud of. I'd wake up gasping the image of her face. Whittling her, haunting me, she was everywhere, and the scent of her perfume clinging to her old coat in the hallway, in the kitchen, and yet she was nowhere. I was just trying to survive the night, 1 hour at a time, one breath at a time, one lay at a time, because pretending was easier than remembering. Silence was easier than truth some nights. I'd sit on the edge of my bed with my phone in my hand, thumb hovering over the screen, wondering if I should call someone, report him, tell Samim, but what would I even say? That my father said things he shouldn't. They looked at me like I wasn't me, that he touched me in ways that didn't break laws, but broke me anyway. Would they believe me? Would they call it trauma or just confusion? Would they ask what I did to provoke it? Why? I stayed silent because silence became both my prison and my shield. I started question engineering, not just him, but me. Was I weak? Was I complicit? Was I broken too? He'd stare in the mirror and ask, if he walked away from that night untouched, then did anything really happen? And every time my body answered for me, my stomach churned, my chest locked, because it happened, and words and gestures and silence had happened, and then I broke. I went downstairs one night to grab my coat and keys. I just needed to get out, breathe, but he was there leaning against the counter, arms folded, waiting. He asked where I was going. I lied, said I was meeting a friend, Hesmeld, and that smile, it broke me. It was the kind of smile people give when they think they still have power over you, smug, familiar, wrong. So I snapped. I looked him in the eyes for the first time in weeks and said, you're not grieving, you're feeding off the broken pieces of someone who trusted you. And just like that, my truth was out, shaky, tears stained, but real. He didn't argue, didn't yell. He just looked at me in first time. I saw fear in his eyes, maybe not fear of me, but fear of what he finally found my voice. I went upstairs and packed a small bag, just clothes, Mom's journal, and that photo. Her wedding day, when she still smiled like the world hadn't dimmed her light. I left before sunrise, no note, Naga, be barefoot, carrying only what I couldn't bear to leave behind. That was the day I left my childhood, not just the house, not just the man who raised me. I left the illusion that family means safety, that love never hurts, like that parents always protect. Even now, years later, I sometimes wonder, was I ever really a daughter? Or just a shadow of someone who used to love trying to be enough to bring her back? If you've ever experienced something too twisted to name, you're not alone. If you've ever sat in the dark, unsure if what happened was real because no one ever touched you, but you still feel broken. I see you if you've questioned your memory, your silence. I have too. I don't have all the answers, not even close, but I know this staying silent didn't protect me. It only made the shame heavier, and I'm done carrying it alone. So I'm asking you, would you have done something different? Would you have screamed? Would you have run? Or would you have stayed frozen? Caught between love, fear, and a silence that swallowed you whole? Let me know in the comments. You don't have to share your whole story, but even a few words might help someone else find theirs. And tell me this, do you think grief can twist love into something unrecognizable? Know something it was never meant to be, because I used to believe love had limits. But now I wonder what happens when the person who says, I love you, is the same one who breaks you. If you want more stories like this, not polished, no teasy, but true, please subscribe to Affair revealed this is where the stories Weathery come to light. Some fathers protect, they stand in the doorway when the world tries to hurt you. They hold you when your heart breaks. They remind you just by being there that you are safe, and some destroy in the name of love, not with fists, not with rage, but with twisted affection, with lingering stares, with quiet invasions, wrapped in soft words, with grief that turns. Poisonous because it refuses to stay in its place, sometimes the greatest. Betrayal doesn't come from strangers, it comes from fiancés who say they're hurting too, the ones who whisper comfort while stealing something you didn't even know. Was yours to protect your boundaries, your sense of self, your childhood? I don't know if what I went through as a name, maybe it doesn't need one, because the damage was real either way, and the healing, it's still happening. This was my story, maybe. It's Summy and Niels's too, maybe it's yours, and if it is, you are not alone anymore.